Hey guys, welcome back. We're your hosts, Jamie
and Jamie, and today we have Taylor.
Hello.
Hey girl. We know Taylor. Well, I'm like thinking you're my cousin. You met Taylor when?
I met her officially, like, I fully remember meeting you when we made prayer boards at the beginning of this year.
Right.
But I know that we've met at, like, Kaysen's birthday parties or whatever. Family functions. Yeah.
So yeah, we're so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. You are one of the better cousins.
I will say.
You are one of my favorite. Well, okay, so you're my cousin-in-law, which you hate.
Yeah.
You hate when I say that.
We're in-laws.
No, but I feel like when I first married Chaz, like, me and you were not close at all. But like just until recently, we've gotten so close, and I'm like, where have you been all my life? Like, I love you so much, and like we get along so well, and I'm like, why have we not been close this entire time? But
well, first of all, I think you just make it easy to get along with. You're just
Thanks.
an easygoing person. But a big part of it, I mean, I was living in a different
That's
state
true.
for a long time.
I guess that's true.
But regardless, I'm happy.
Yeah.
We are where we are now.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Yeah. Well, okay. So something that we ask everyone that comes on the podcast is, what is your favorite Bible verse and how does it resonate specifically to you?
Okay, so this sounds really corny and cheesy, but it's 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. Whether you're like a strong Christian or not, you've probably heard this verse. It resonates with me. I mean, we'll dive more into how it resonates with me later in the pod, but it's love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Love will last forever.
I love that one. I remember, I think in high school I had a senior project where you had to find, it was like an English class, and I had to find a quote, and I ended up using a Bible verse instead of like a quote. I mean, it's what it is. And I like did a whole project on it. I love that one a lot.
Yeah.
But it does sound corny to everyone
It
else.
does. It's like the Bible verse, like whether you have grown up in church or not, you've heard it before. But
no, I love that.
I mean, what we talk about today has everything to do with it. So
yeah. No, I love that. Did you want to kind of dive into your testimony and how maybe that resonates to you within your story?
Sure. It's kind of hard to explain. I grew up as a kid in and out of church. Neither of my parents were like strong Christians. We didn't grow up going to church. That wasn't the norm for us. I went with my grandma a lot. And then kind of into my teen years, my parents had split up. My dad is an atheist. My mom remarried and became a Jehovah's Witness. So I was kind of on my own to figure out my faith, and I just kept going to church, and then I got involved with Young Life. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Did a lot of summer and winter camps, and that's where it really clicked for me, and I formed a relationship with Jesus. I got baptized when I was 16, and it's just been going ever since. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it's been a while, and of course, you go through periods of your life where your relationship with Jesus is stronger and not as strong, and I've definitely dealt with that my whole life, but it was interesting to try and follow Jesus and figure out this walk of faith without any guidance from like parents or anyone, so it was tricky, but
well, especially being like atheist, like that's a huge decision for you to be like, okay, well, I'm going to separate myself from you, even though you're my dad and I love you so much. Like, I'm just going to do my thing and figure out what I believe in.
Yeah,
that had to have been tough.
It was really hard, especially as a teenager. We couldn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. Yeah. And so, I think that it was challenging. But I'm here today, and it made me the woman I am. It made me the follower of Jesus that I am today. So I'm grateful for it all. It doesn't sound that exciting, but
no, but that's super powerful though, to like not only your character but like also your faith, and now you can look back, like you said, like it made you who you are, and you have like the strong relationship you do now because of, little you being like, no, I do follow
Yeah.
you and I do believe in you.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, I definitely felt alone a lot. I mean, even now, like when I go to church, it's just me. I'm not, going with my family. I'm not married right now, so I don't go with my family. My siblings don't have the same faith as me, so
Yeah. No, that's hard. It can be so lonely when you are like, you feel like the only person in your life that really has that commitment. And I think we've talked so many times, community is so important in finding your group of people, or, the church that you feel works with you and where you feel like you belong. So I feel like that's just hard. Like, how do you choose to show up to church? Because for me, that's something I struggle with. Is right now I'm currently looking for a church to go to, but it's scary to me because I feel like I don't have anyone to do that with me, because you're strong with your church, and like I don't have someone that's gonna like go with me. So how do you kind of decide like, yeah, I'm gonna go to church today?
It's hard to explain. You just kind of do it. Like, it's like I don't really have a choice, so it's either my options are go by myself or not go at all. And it's like I know how my life looks when I don't go, and I don't want that. So it's definitely been hard. I grew up in Arizona, moved away to Utah for a while, and moved back here. So there's been a lot of like church shopping. But I think I've gotten very lucky in like just finding a church that I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is where I need to be. But I just taking the leap and just recognizing like my options. Like I either don't go or I go by myself. So which one makes you feel better? And
you should go with Taylor.
You totally should.
Yeah, we should go
by your parents' house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we should go, because I'm just looking for something that kind of I feel like is my home, like a church to call home, So I like that answer though, because I think it's so true. Just do it. Just the whole Nike moment.
Exactly. Nike.
What else do you feel? So you lived in Utah. So your walk with God, from what you've said so far, seems pretty like, oh, she's got this. Like she's super strong in her faith. Like God's got her.
No.
What are some? Let's just dive in. What are some things that you feel like have tested your faith, or have made you question, like, are you here, God?
Yeah, I think explaining it the way that I did does make it seem very easy peasy and like happy-go-lucky. It definitely was not always that way. I grew up in a really broken home with a lot of turmoil, so that was hard in itself, and it was hard to be like, why is this happening to me? Like I believe in God, and I know he's good, and I know he's there, but like it seems like these bad things are happening to good people, and that was just hard to work through. It took a lot of prayer and a lot of reflecting. And then in my early 20s, I moved to Utah. I got married really young, and it ended up not working out. And I think that was the biggest turning point in my walk with Jesus, because I got married. It was not a very healthy relationship. He was not a Christian, and I was, and if I tried to implement that in our relationship and our marriage, it just caused problems. So it made sense to take a step back from my faith and put church on a back burner and put my marriage more towards, more in the center. And it wasn't great. It was probably a really bad time in my life. I felt disconnected to everybody. The marriage in itself wasn't great. I didn't have a relationship with my family. I didn't have friends. I didn't have any purpose, it felt like. And it was just this turning point in my life where I wasn't going to church. I was so unhappy that I was like, I have to pause for a second and reevaluate everything that I know, because something's not working here, and it's not what I pictured for my life. Growing up in a broken family, I was always like, a divorce? Me? Never. That's not going to be me. Like, I'm going to be in this happy marriage. I'm going to have, a happy family. And that didn't happen. And that's okay. I don't ever fault myself for that. And I know, like, divorce is kind of a taboo topic when it comes to Christians, but I have some notes here. But I think what it came down to was like God's love and grace is available to everyone regardless of your circumstance. And I had to pause and like look at what does God say about love and marriage, and then it kind of clicked in my head like that's not at all what my marriage is or my relationship is, so something has to change. You know, I had to really look at like I had to stop and think about the truth. Like, what has God called me to do in my life? He's called me to be a godly wife, a godly woman, and serve people. And that relationship, my marriage, it was holding me back from that. And I think God, you know, he doesn't want you to get divorced, but I'm like, was God even the forefront of this marriage?
Right.
So it was never going to work.
That's good. I like that mindset shift a lot.
Yeah. So I just really had to pause. And then, of course, going back to 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, I had to, like, really stop and be like, what does God say about love? Because I'm a little confused. Like, I know that I love this person. He said he loves me, but this is causing a lot of unhappiness. And so I had to really break down the verse. Like, love is patient. I'm like, is there patience in my marriage? No. Like, is love kind in my marriage? No. All these things, it was like, no, 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 no. And I was like, something's telling me, like, I'm not doing the right thing. So I ended that. I got out of that. I got involved in a church out there, by myself, just being like, I gotta try this. And I think when you're in a circumstance that wasn't given to you by God, like, you have turmoil inside. Like, your life feels like it's in shambles. You're not happy. Like, if there's peace in your heart, then that's most likely coming from God. And so going through this divorce, I mean, I was like, I'm 21 years old. Like, if I get divorced, like, my family's not even in this state. I'm a preschool teacher. I don't make enough money. Like, what am I gonna do? But it was God was putting on my heart, like, this is not right. It's like, you need to get out of it. And so when I did, it was the weirdest, like, it felt like a moment where I shouldn't have peace, but I did. And I grew so much, and I met the most amazing people in my life. Like, so much good came from it that I was like, that was God being like, it's okay, you made a mistake. Like, it happens. So I think from that point on, I really put my faith first, and just everything kind of fell into place.
Well, and I like too that you weren't like, I got divorced, which is something God hates, so I'm going to turn away from God because I'm scared of him being mad at me, or, I just did this thing that he says not to do. Like, I can't be involved in this religion anymore. But that wasn't the mindset that you took at all. And I think that, is powerful. You took it as like, no, I made a mistake. God wasn't in this relationship at all. So first of all, how was this going to work? And yeah, I mean, I think that we can all say that you made the right decision. And I'm happy because where you are now compared to where you were when you were 21, like, you are a completely different person.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just been so great to watch, like, firsthand, like, God work through you in every single stage of your life. So yeah, I mean, that is huge. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I know. I'm kind of sitting over here, like, I was just in awe. Like, everything you were saying, I was like, that is amazing. And that's like, God really, like, saved you. And just to hear how you beautifully, like, shared your story and, like, the goodness of it, like, that's so, like, inspiring. And honestly, I'm, like, left with no words because I'm like, that was, like, amazing.
Well,
like,
and you talk so nice too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so intrigued right now. No, that was amazing. But
it's been years, so I've had some
healed.
time to, I've definitely healed. And of course, in the midst of all of it, it was crazy. It was emotional. I, just recently, like, got a diagnosis with PTSD and depression. And it's like, I was going through all of that on my own.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, God was really the only one there for me. Not to say, like, it was anybody's fault. Like, my family didn't reach out to me. Like, no, I was in a bad place. Like, I had pushed everyone away. Like, I didn't have anybody. Like, my relationship with my family wasn't great. I had no friends. And it was just, I had to get myself out of it. So
Was your family, I can't remember, but was your family supportive of your marriage, or how did that look?
it was a little wishy-washy.
Yeah.
I totally just burped.
That's okay.
It's fine.
I'm gonna start that over. It was a little wishy-washy. Some people liked him, some people didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody loved the idea of me moving out of state for him. We had a really big age gap, and I was young.
Right.
He was married before, had a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was a lot of red flags that my family was aware of, but nobody wanted to say anything at the risk of losing the relationship
Of
with me,
course,
and I
yeah.
understand that. And I think just through just having like a really toxic marriage, and to not really like throw his character under the bus, but I wasn't really allowed to have relationships with other people, and so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, nobody would like full on say they didn't like him or
Yeah,
didn't like our
right.
relationship, but I knew deep in my heart, and even like coming home to see my family and visiting, like I almost was embarrassed because I was like, I got myself in this position, and when it's like, what do I do? Getting a divorce, that's not an option. I think the only time like it really clicked in my head that it was an option was so random. It was like one night I was at home and I was like, I hate everything in my life right now. Like I'm so unhappy. And so he came home and I just literally laid it out. I'm like, hey, something's not working right now. Like I'm really unhappy. We've got to figure something out. Like whether I go home for a little bit and we take a break, like help me out here. And his actual response was, well, then we're getting a divorce.
Oh.
And I was like,
Well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I'm like, well, you kind of made it easy for me. I mean, not that it was
Yeah.
easy, but
No,
made it easy by
but-
being
but
not
it
putting up a
was,
fight.
because I think we were together for like 3 years. We were married for like just over 1. And as soon as we got married, it was like a shift change in everything. And the
Really?
whole time I knew it wasn't right. Things weren't working. But in my head, I was like, I made a vow to this man. Like I made a vow to God, whether he did or not. So I'm going to make this work. And I tried for, a
Yeah.
year. And it was just like, when you're the only one putting in effort, and it's just not, it's not going to work.
Did you have any sense of like, maybe I can fix him or maybe I can change him? Or were you kind of just like, I'm going to love you where you're at and I'm just going to like, change who I am to fit your life and your needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I changed. Like, I wasn't going to change who I was.
Right.
But it was the mindset where it's like, I'm just going to love you how you are. And to me, I didn't have a great example of how a marriage should look. My parents aren't together. My parents at the time weren't in great relationships. My grandparents weren't a great example. Aunts and uncles. Like, I really had no example. So I was just like, okay, I think this is right. Like, this is what I see. So I'm just going to make this work. And it wasn't until I finally, like, dove into the Word of God, like, okay, God, what do you say this marriage is supposed to be? What do you say love is supposed to be? And then I was like, oh no, I've got it wrong. Like, all these people have it wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's no perfect relationship,
Yeah.
but I think the Word of God has a lot to say about love and what it should look like.
Was it that same night that you were like, okay, something's not working, that you dove into the Bible? Or was that like over time? Or like, how did that come across for you to have the idea to even like look for truth?
That's also a really good question. I think growing up in like such a broken family and being around so much turmoil, I didn't really have any other, what's the word?
Guidance?
I didn't have any guidance or example of like what the truth is. But as a Christian, I'm like, this is all I know. The Bible's all I got. So it's like, maybe it was like a slow,
Okay.
here and there. I don't think there was like a specific night where I'm like, I have to look in the Bible. Like, I think it was
like you were comfortable reading it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I tried to go to church that whole time that we were together. So and this is 3 years.
Yeah.
We tried to go to church like 2 or 3 times, and it always ended in a fight. Or when we did go, it like made it such a bad experience for me because he was like complaining or you know, making me feel silly for believing this stuff. And so I was just like, okay, well then I'm just like, you're making this worse, like I'm just not gonna do it.
Because at that point it's like, you don't even respect me because that is something I stand firmly on, and you didn't even get that respect. So.
If I have any advice for any young people, it's like, before you get, and I think before we got married, we never had those conversations of like, what is your faith like? How do you want that to bleed into our family? Or just any of those conversations. And I think that's so important to have, because you need to be on the same page. I know people say like marriages can work if you don't have the same beliefs, but it makes it hard. And it is not easy. And I really had to look into the word of God to be like, all right, what is love? What is that supposed to look like? What am I supposed to feel? So going forward, you know, any relationships that I think about, like, faith is always one of the first questions. Not to say that you have to be like exactly on the same page with everything. I'm in such a happy relationship now, and we don't align on everything, but the key values we do.
And I think that it also is a lot of your heart posture, where you both are as human beings and how you respect one another, and those like core values like you have aligned, but also like you both are good people, and you both have the same like wants for your life and how, you know, you might want for your kids or whatever. So I think that that's just like, you can have things that are a little bit different, or certain things you don't like. You're not a robot like perfect with everything, but just that's proof that you can be with people that have maybe slight differences, but and
there's never been a point where, I mean, maybe when I was going through it, like, God, what did you do? Like, why did you let this happen? And it wasn't till long after therapy and a lot of self-reflection that I'm like, well, that wasn't God. Like, I made that choice. And, you know, he's a loving God that gives us free will, and he's like, go for it, try it, see what happens. And I learned my lesson, but
you're like, you couldn't have just like given me a sign like, hey.
Like, and I think looking back, I had plenty of signs. And I ignored them. I was like, God, I know you have this plan for me, but like, this is what I have decided, and I'm going to make it work. And whether you think you're going to make it work or not, if it's not God's plan, it's not going to work. You can work as hard as you can. You can pray as hard as you want. If it is not God's plan, it's not going to work.
Preach it. I think I struggle with that a lot. I'm like, okay, is God talking to me? Am I not hearing from him, or am I just ignoring him because he's telling me things that I don't want to hear? So I think I struggle with that a lot, of like, no, he is talking to you, you're just not listening to him. And also, why is he going to keep telling you the same thing over and over and over again? Like, I'm just rejecting what he has to say. Like, that has to be a slap in the face at some point. So obviously he's going to give it up and be like, all right, if she wants to figure it out on her own so bad, then I'm going to let her.
And I don't think, like, I don't look back on it and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have never done that. Everything. I'm like, there was a lot of good in it, and so much good came out of it that God was like, yeah, you made this mistake, but hey, we're going to make it better, and we're going to make it worth it. And
well, my personal take on the whole thing is, I think you had to go through this for yourself to learn what a healthy relationship is. Because unfortunately, like you said, you weren't ever taught that. And so, you know, you wouldn't have ever found out what to look for and what love actually is if you didn't go through the complete opposite. And that's only like going to amplify the kind of wife you're going to be and the kind of mother you're going to be. And it like makes me sad and emotional. Just like, I can't imagine someone not loving you like the best that they can, because you are just such an amazing human being, and it just makes me so mad.
Thank you.
And I'm like, I want to name drop so bad. I'm just kidding.
It's hard too, because I'm like, there's some tea I could spill, but I'm like, that's not.
But you're so graceful.
And I'm like, he's shown me so much grace, and I'm like, I'm gonna show the same grace. And that was really hard, like right after the divorce, was because I was like, this man is going to drag my name and drag my character through the dust. And that's what hurt me so bad, because I knew who I was, and I knew how loving and graceful and caring I was. I was like, these people are going to believe this. Like, it's going to ruin me. And I started therapy right after the divorce, which I recommend to every living person on this planet. It's helped me so much. But one thing he said was, okay, so he tells somebody these lies and they believe them. Does that change who you are?
Right.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And he's like, is there anything you can do to change what they believe? No. And he's like, you just got to get over it. And again, I had to look back into the Word of God. Like, what does God say about my character? So,
Yeah.
I've
Wait,
grown
that's
a
so
lot.
wise.
Like, I've grown so much.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend anyone who's young and is like, should I move away from home for a little bit? Do it.
Yeah.
Because I grew so much and I met the most amazing friends, the most amazing community. Like I said, I just grew so much emotionally and I really found out who I was and what I wanted. So.
Yeah.
And what brought you back here? Because so you were married in a different state, and then what brought you back here?
My family.
Yeah.
After the divorce, I actually stayed in Utah for like a good year or so.
dang, okay.
I had some amazing people that helped me out. I had roommates, and then I actually decided to go back to school because I was like, I can do this. I can make my own choices. I can be successful. So I went back to school, and then I think I got really homesick.
Yeah.
I have 2 young nephews, and watching them grow up over a phone was like heartbreaking. So
Yeah.
I just felt like God and my heart was calling me back home, and so I came home. Whether I stay here, who knows? But but at the time, that's where God wanted me.
Yeah, no, I like that. And do you think, like, now looking back, do you ever struggle with having those, like, I don't know, I guess, like, doubts with God or, like, what you're going through? Like, do you think that ever comes back? Because, I mean, as much as, like, you sound so confident and so strong in your faith, and, like, I love that, but I also know, like, it's normal to have doubts and things like that. So I'm just curious about that.
I think one of the things that I struggle with in Christianity is like sometimes people aren't very forthcoming with everything. It's like this glass wall of like, oh yeah, I'm happy, God's got me, but it's like, no, I struggle with doubts all the time. And I think the big thing I struggle with is like trusting myself and my decisions, because I'm like, oh God, I did that one time and it did not work out for me. It's like, how can I trust that this is what you have planned, or if this is a smart decision? But I think a lot of prayer, like not meditation, not like om meditation, but like, sitting
with
in the
God.
quiet, is the only thing. Because even to this day, I mean, life's never easy, and I think the big thing that I've learned lately is life doesn't get easier the closer you get to God. It's actually a lot harder.
Yeah.
There was a saying that I just heard, maybe one of you guys told me, I don't know, but it was like, Satan doesn't have to, what is it?
Those brain wheels are spinning.
Like someone who's so far from like God and Jesus, like Satan doesn't have to attack them because they're already far from God. Where he sees someone who's like close with Jesus, he's like, that's where I have to mess everything up.
Yeah.
And so I really have to hold on to that. Like, it just means that I'm closer to God and I'm where I'm supposed to be. It's still so hard. And I struggle a lot, especially lately, with, hearing God or feeling his presence. But I think the big thing is I don't give up. I feel like I haven't heard from God or felt God in weeks, to be honest. But that doesn't mean I've stopped reading my Bible. I've stopped praying. Like, I just keep on going, because I know you'll go through phases in your life where, your walk with Jesus feels so much easier, when it's really hard, and it's just about just keep on going.
Well, that just proves like your faithfulness and how strong your faith is, because you are day and day after like proving that like no matter what comes my way, I'm going to turn to God. Like, it's not just my battle, it's God. And I kind of wrote a verse down, and it's Romans 5:3. We can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And I thought that just really kind of resonates in the fact that no matter the trials or the waiting periods or the doubts that you're given or you're feeling, like pushing through and persevering towards God and putting God first is only going to help you so much more later on. Like God will always provide, and by proving and showing that like I'm not gonna stop like running after you, like that's going to make it's going to show up in your life, and you'll see that. But obviously, you know, sometimes we have to go through waiting periods or doubting periods or whatever it is, but it's all to teach us a lesson and help us grow and, you know, honestly grow closer to him.
Yeah, I think in any relationship it's you're gonna have to have times where you're the one pursuing and you're the one chasing. It's 50-50, you know, and I think that's how I look at my relationship with Jesus. It's like, okay, I can't really hear you right now, but like, all right, then I'll put in the 100 till I see it back, you know?
No, I love that, because also like it's cool to think how like our relationship with Jesus is like portrayed through everyday life, like your friendships, your romantic relationships, like even just people you see at the grocery store, like those relationships portray Jesus, the relationship you have with Jesus. And you know, like you are going to be chasing after them, you're going to want to create that relationship, and you are going to have times of doubt, and you are going to have those times of those troublesome times where you have to figure it out. But when you go together, you grow stronger. And like I feel like just even every relationship kind of proves the same that we have with Jesus.
So. And I think a lot of questions that I get is like, how can you believe in God? Like this happened to you, and this happened to you, and this happened to you. And it's like, you can look at life that way. It's not going to get you anywhere, whether you're a Christian or not. Like, you can look at all the bad, but why don't you stop and look at all the good? Because 90% of the time, the good outweighs the bad. I can go outside and, like, look at the sunset and look at the cloud, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how amazing is God? How gracious. And so just try and be positive. I know it's really hard. I mean, you're talking to someone who has clinical depression. Like, I have struggled with that. It's been hard, but it's just finding the little things that bring you happiness and joy. I look at my 2 nephews and I'm like, how could you not believe in God? That's insane to me.
That's what I tell everyone. I'm like, once you go through giving birth, like, there's no way that you can't believe in God. Like, it's just...
everyone's made so beautifully. Like, everything is just so, like, purposefully and beautifully made that it's like, how can you not? And it's also like, people, you know, always give that question of, well, why do kids have cancer? Which is so hard for someone to understand. We don't actually, like, we don't know. But like, I mean, we've talked about it before. I like to think that, like, you know, God isn't like he's not the one doing that. First of all, he's not giving the kids cancer. Like, that's horrible. God is all things good. But he also knows that, you know, maybe later on in life something could happen and he's protecting them from something. Or he's wanting to see them sooner. He's wanting to bring them back home to him sooner. I think there's just a lot of things people don't, like, actually try to understand more. Like, they don't do the research or look into it more. It's always like, I'm going to blame God. I'm going to blame God. But it's like, yeah, but also we do have free will, and like we have the power to cause a lot of pain and a lot of hurt, and God's gonna allow certain things to happen for a reason. If you want to look at the bad side of it, go ahead, but like you said, that doesn't get you anywhere. And I kind of was like thinking of something this past week. Like, I previously was thinking how like you can't be anxious and grateful, and then that brought me to the point of, like, God kind of told me, I was like driving and God told me, like, the key to happiness is gratitude. And I was like just kind of thinking, like, you know, talking to God and just thinking this through, and I was like, he has a point. Like, just going outside, looking at your sunset and putting more of your time on that than like some little bad thing that happened in your day, like, affects everything. It's all about, like, your mindset. If you want to be complaining, that's because you want to complain. If you're upset all the time, you're wanting to complain, and that's fine. Like, I want to complain all the time. Like, I still live with my parents, and I'm like, oh, like, I need to move out. Like, I want to move out, but that's me complaining, and I'm like wanting to complain. But I could turn it around and be like, I am so grateful I don't have to pay rent right now. Like, I'm so grateful that I have a roof over my head at all. I'm so grateful that there is food in the fridge if I ever need it, or I could ask for anything and they could help me. Like, I don't focus on that enough. And I think this past week, like, my mindset just shifted, and I was like, I really want to get better at that, of if I want to complain, just simply don't.
Right.
And try and find something good, even if it's literally like the sky is blue today, it's clear.
Yeah.
Or the grass in that person's yard is so green, that's beautiful, that's life. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's so much easier to be in pain and like hurting in the world. And so it's like hearing your story of how you overcame that and turning to the good is like amazing. Like, I'm actually so shook. Like, it's crazy.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not easy, and I hope everything I'm saying isn't like making people think that it's going to be easy, because it's not.
Oh, no.
And I think too, another thing to remember is like, God is not human, so we will never understand. Like, going back to like the kids have cancer thing, like we might not ever get the answers that we're looking for, but that's just like, we're not made the same way that God is. So it's like, that's just how it is. And I think a big thing is like, people are like, oh, like, be so grateful and thankful. It's like, no, if you want to complain, if you're upset, take it to God. Like, God would rather you come to him and complain and be angry than to just not talk to him at all. And I'll be the first one to say, I have yelled at God, you know, I've been angry, I've been upset, but I take it to him. Going back, like, it's like a relationship, like a boyfriend girlfriend relationship. If you're upset, you've got to talk about it.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And I think, getting into the Bible too, to be able to hear God, or sorry, my mind's all over the place. You said you feel like you haven't really heard from God in like weeks or something, but what do you ever know, like, if you put yourself in a certain situation, do you feel God the most? Like, for me personally, like, when I am driving and listening to worship music, like, I literally feel his presence so deeply, and like, I feel so good, like, brought
He's
to
in
tears.
the passenger seat.
No, literally. And I'm like, we're having a jam
You're like,
session
what's up,
together.
buddy?
Yeah, literally.
Carpool karaoke.
So yeah, that's just an example, but are there any positions that you can put yourself in and God shows up, or is it just random for you? Like, what is your experience with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just a couple weeks ago in therapy, that's something that I was so upset about. I'm like, I don't hear God, I don't feel God. Like, what do I do? And my therapist asked me the same thing. Like, is there a certain time or like a certain place that you feel God the most? And I was like, with my nephews. And she was like, okay, so then go do that more. And I've been trying lately, and I still, unfortunately, I'm like, okay, well, I just want to go back home and go to bed. And that's, you know, that's depression, and that's my own thoughts trying to take over me. And like, I have no other words than just like, keep trying and don't give up. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think it's being persistent and consistent is literally the most important thing you can do. Like, just knowing, like, and I also think, like, when you're praying and you're wanting to hear from him and stuff, don't tell him, like, I don't know if you're ever gonna be there. Like, obviously you can be like, I'm having doubts, and like, I don't want to have those. Like, being open about the fact that, like, I haven't heard you in so long, like, are you there? But also having the, like, I trust you, and if you're not with me right now, that's fine, and you don't want to, you know, show me, that's fine. I know I'll learn from it, but maybe when that time comes, like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready when you're ready, type thing.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any better way to explain that, because I'm never like, okay, like, if you can hear me. Like, it's never like a sarcastic thing, like you said. It's just like, hey, I don't know what's going on. Like, I need your help. So, like, I don't know what to do. Like, to guide me, show me. Like, and I think a big thing is having a good community. And seriously, thank God for you guys starting the Bible study, because I think that has helped a lot. I've come to you guys and I've been like, hey, I'm not hearing anything, I'm not feeling anything. And you know, a lot of you are like, yeah, I'm same, or let me pray for you, or this is what I did. And you know, you sent me a podcast, you sent me a book, and I listened to that podcast. Jamie, you have a gift at like knowing exactly what someone needs to hear in that moment. Because
did you listen to the whole thing?
Yeah, I did this morning, and it was exactly what I needed to hear, you know. So I do see, like, God in moments like that. Like I shouldn't say that I don't see him at all, or I don't feel him, but it's, you know,
he comes in different forms, and I think sometimes it's harder than others to understand or
look at you two. Just saying
Oh.
exactly what I need to hear.
Well, it's because we all go through it and we understand, and it's like that's the point of this community, and like the point of us even, you know, having group chat talking.
Well, and God's not going to put two girls who have their lives together to do this podcast. Like, God calls on the broken.
Right.
And, you know, we both experienced doubt. Jamie was sharing with us how she was reading about the serpent. And she was like, how the heck is there a snake?
I'm so confused, but this is, I was like, this isn't my thought, but like, I have
Jamie, the Old Testament is like, you're like, you're telling me Jonah got swallowed by a whale and spit back out?
Really?
Are we sure about this?
I'm like, I don't think so. But no, it's so real, I think, to doubt, just to have your doubts, but to still remain strong. And, well, I know God is God. Right. And a few things I wrote down, Genesis 18:14, it basically states nothing is too hard for the Lord. And something cool that I wrote was, don't look at your circumstances, look to God and be assured that nothing is too hard for him. Faith is not ignoring your circumstances, it's looking straight at your circumstances and saying, I know God is going to come through with this. And then I also, just to continue on, Matthew 14:30, but when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, O you of little faith, why do you doubt? And that verse, I feel like God's just like, come here, you're so silly. Like, I got you. Why are you freaking out?
Yeah. And I mean, like, looking at, you know, Jesus and his disciples, it wasn't like these 12 people that were like, hey, I believe everything you say. Yeah, I'm never going to question
you.
They
there was so much doubt.
There was
through
literally,
this whole thing.
Right. There was a disciple literally called, like, Doubting Thomas. Like, because, it's just what we do as humans.
And I think that's just exactly why our faith is so important. It's like, you are going to have doubts, but if you have this faith, you will be saved. Yeah. Like, I think that's just a beautiful part of why the Bible is
and amazing. Having doubts, I think, grows your faith, you know. Exactly. If you're consistent, if you have these doubts and you're consistent, you're gonna find the answers and you're gonna find peace. So that's why keep on keeping on, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of touched base on you're now in a great relationship, if you want to talk about that and end on a happy, positive note.
He's great. We're really happy. You know, we'll get married. We have a lot of the same values. Poor guy, I've have a lot of trust issues, and you know, PTSD and depression comes with a lot of emotional, not turmoil, not baggage, I hate that word, but I know what you mean.
You know,
he's been
your past.
Exactly. Yeah. He's been so supportive and so patient and everything the Bible says that love should be, and I'm like, oh wow. No. Even that, again, our relationship is not perfect. Does he annoy the crap out of me sometimes? Do I annoy him? 100%, I'm sure. But we love each other regardless, and we love each other through our faults. And it's really a love like Jesus, as cheesy as it is.
I mean, it just makes you think, like, God removing your ex from your life probably was very intentional to place your new.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't have met him if I wouldn't have gone to Utah.
Yeah.
So it's like God works in really mysterious ways sometimes, but it always leads to good. And he goes to church with me.
It's funny you said,
let's go.
You said, we're going to get married. So you already know you're going to get married. What does that look like? Are you guys in like a waiting season?
Oh my gosh. I'm in a waiting season. Yeah. I went through a season where I was really, really buggy about it. Like, when's it going to happen? Is this on your radar? What's happening? I'm tired of waiting. And he's so patient, but he finally was like, hey, please stop asking me. Like, I love you so much. We're going to get married. I'm going to ask you, but I want it to be so special. I want you to be surprised. Like, so if you keep asking me, like, we were going on trips. We went on a trip for Thanksgiving and then Christmas and my birthday. And so every trip I was like, oh my gosh, is he going to propose? We're going to the beach. Is he going to propose? There was a time we were literally at the beach and he started drawing in the sand. And I was like,
it's happening.
This is it. Like, he's going to get down on one knee. And like, I looked and it just said, I love Taylor, which is so sweet. But I was like, oh.
That's a weird way to spell marry me.
So I just had to, I mean, I trust him, you know? Yeah. So I was like, our time will come, and, you know, God has a time, God has a plan, he has a plan. I want to be surprised. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta chill, Taylor.
Well,
Get
and he
it under
probably
control.
wants this to be so special for you, you know,
Right.
like this is kind of your redemption.
Which I have to
So-
appreciate. Like, I
Right.
appreciate so much.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
like
taking the
everything
time
he
to
does.
He's not just going to be
actually-
like, I'm going to rush into it, propose, and like,
Right.
it doesn't feel special for her. Like, he wants it to stand out. He wants it to
matter.
Yeah.
And be like different.
And in this relationship, everybody, my whole family, loves him.
Yeah.
So I was
he-
like,
That's a
great.
win.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
So I decided to ignore some red flags before, but
Yeah.
it feels good. So
He does
that's
have the
good.
same name as your nephew, so every time you say his name, I'm like, who are you talking about?
It's tricky.
I'm sure
tricky.
everyone is like that.
Yeah, our like
Yeah.
immediate family, we know the difference because they're both Dylan.
Yeah.
My nephew spells it Dillon, and he spells it Dillan, which is
Which are both
so
weird spellings.
I
Like, the
know.
right spelling
Yeah.
is Dylan.
For a while, it was Little Dylan and Big Dylan,
Oh, okay.
but then Little Dylan wants to be the Big Dylan, so I was
Yeah.
like, no, I'm Big Dylan. So we're like, crap, they can't both be Big Dylan. So now it's Dylan and Dylan.
Dylan and Dylan.
Dylan, yeah.
Little
so.
Dylan is like, I matter, okay? I'm a big Dill.
Yeah, he's like, he actually doesn't like to be called Dill anymore.
Oh,
if you call him
dang.
Dill,
so
he's
sad.
like,
you can't call him Dilly Pickle anymore?
no, my mom called him that, and he was like, Mimi, it's just Dylan. I was
How
like,
old is he?
He's so
5.
old.
He just turned
Okay,
5.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
That
very,
makes sense.
very
They
big.
they turn 5 and they think they're
They run the world.
yeah, they're someone big apparently.
Yeah, it was funny. Like right when he turned 5, it was like if there was a cup with a straw or like a
Oh,
sippy
no.
cup. Oh heck no! Like it has to be an open cup.
That is so
Oh,
funny.
Like it just he woke
Yeah.
up and decided to be a grown man.
I'm a man
Dang.
today, so
Yeah.
That's funny. No, but I love that your little redemption story. Like
Yeah.
that's amazing, and I'm
Thanks.
waiting for my wedding invite.
yeah. Well,
You
and I
guys
think
will
too,
all be a
like,
part of it.
it's easy to just, you know, go day to day like, God, I can't hear you. God, where are you? But I think when you step back and look at your life and look at where you are today compared to 5 years ago, that's God working in miraculous ways in itself. And I know it's really easy to get, you know, caught up in the everyday things.
Oh, so easy. I'm a preschool teacher, so
Right.
in special education right now. So between that and working towards my degree online, I'm like, there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't prayed in like 3 days. Like
Yeah.
that's on me. So like, you
Yeah.
know, but it's just about recognizing that and then diving back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Love
sharing
you
your
so
story.
Thanks,
much.
guys.
It was so much fun.
I hope that made sense. I hope,
you
you know,
did.
I prayed a lot for
Yeah.
like, God, whatever needs to be said, whatever someone needs to hear, please work through me. So
Yeah.
No,
You
I
did
love
great.
that. And you speak beautifully because
Yeah,
like, this is
you
like
do.
our
Thank you.
longest conversation we've had, I would say,
Oh,
and
gosh.
you speak so beautifully.
well, I also
and
talk so much, you guys.
This
That's
is
like
what
what
I
I
do
do
as
for
this
work.
one.
That's my kind of person, okay? That
We
is-
literally no, we're all gonna get shirts in our Bible study that say Jesus yappers or certified
Oh, I
Some
love
Jesus
that.
yappers, something
Yeah.
like that. Because we just could go on and on. Like you'll
For
see
sure.
tonight with our Bible study, like we do not shut up. We just love the Lord.
I'm excited to be there.
But
Thank you guys for listening.
Yes.
Tune in next week, and
Yeah, we'll see you guys then.
Yep. Bye.